It's our favorite time of the offseason. The Cincinnati Reds are not changing payroll. So we are going to manipulate it and get this roster ready for 2026.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Reds. My name is Jeff Carr, and I'm a lifelong Cincinnati Reds fan. I've been podcasting about this team for 7 seasons now. I'm glad that you're alongside me here today. Locked On Reds is part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team, your Reds, every single day, all throughout the year, whether it's the offseason, in-season, postseason, all the seasons. Our Red season right here on Locked On Reds. And on today's podcast, we are going to be joined by Tim Daniel, and we're going to break down the payroll. The fact that Nick Krall says is not changing. So how can we manipulate that and get the players that we need to make this team better and make a run at the division in 2026? We're going to look at how to manipulate that. Going to break down why it's surprising that the payroll is not changing, at least a little bit. Not talking about like Steve Cohen level or anything like that, but we'll talk about that. And then later on, we're going to look at the bullpen because they added an arm to it who could be a surprising guy. We'll talk about all of that on today's podcast that is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new users can place a $5 wager, and if it wins, you get $300 in bonus bets. To use across the app, download FanDuel today. And joining us is the esteemed postcast host for the Reds. He is Tim Daniel. Tim, what you got for me, man?
Muataka Murakama, Cincinnati Reds power hitter. Are you in?
I like it. Let's do it.
All right. That's payroll edition number 1 because I saw that MLB.com listed the Reds as a potential fit for Kyle Schwarber, which is going to make everyone do like the Kevin McAllister and Home Alone, like running at the camera like this whole thing. We just got to be realistic, guys. It's not going to happen. So this is what's going to happen. It's not going to be Murakama. He's going to the one of the coasts, but or the Cubs.
No, and I wish that the Reds were not out of guys immediately, like out of the runnings for a given free agent, whoever it is, from Kyle Tucker on down to the guy at the bottom of the list, whoever that might be. But it feels as though there are some guys that you can clearly count the Reds out of the running for that dude. Kyle Schwarber is where we are with that. Because I love Kyle Schwarber. I would love to have Kyle Schwarber in a Reds uniform. That would be fantastic. But the Reds are telling us it's not going to happen because Nick Krall came out and said that payroll is not changing for 2026, and which means that they've got around $120 to $130 million total that they're going to spend. I saw that, Spot Track, we use this website a lot during the offseason, said that last year it was around $140 million as far as the competitive balance tax payroll is concerned. That includes $15 million for Jeimer Candelario, which will be, I think, about that this year. I think it's $15 million this year for Jeimer Candelario as well. So you subtract that from 40, you're looking at 135. I think it's more likely we're talking about 130-ish. So it's a little bit concerning me. We're going to break down what the Reds could do to open up some room there, but I think it's annoying that we see this team make it to the wild card. We see them scrape and claw and just, sneak on in. And we know what they need to become a division contender, but it feels as though the Reds are already telling us at the beginning of the offseason, don't get your hopes up.
Yep, and it's the most maddening thing in the world for a Reds fan. It has sent everyone into a disarray, and you know what? I think the fan base is right here. I 100% think the fan base is right to feel the way they feel right now, because that team who, yes, they made the postseason, but you, Steve, and I were on here every day talking about this team. It wasn't a fun team to cover. It wasn't like they were
a very flawed team. Yeah.
Yeah. It wasn't like they were going out there and beating everybody 7-2 every night. Right. It was like, it was like 3-1. They'd score 3 runs in the first, and it would be like they would just be lackadaisical the rest of the day, and they'd kick balls all over the infield, and they would miss like routine fly balls where like they didn't know who to call from the outfield, and they would strike out bases loaded and no outs, and it was just like that is not a formula of success. And then when I say this thing, it's not that I don't think this team is not. I don't think this team's super far away from being a contender. I know that our audience, there's a lot of people who disagree with that, but realistically. It's a lot of if, and if, which I hate to say that, but this is a team that like their holes are very glaring. It's very obvious what they need to get. And I feel like if this team was if they could just reward these current players who, even through all those struggles, found a way to put a run together to get into the postseason, to say, hey, I saw what you guys did. I appreciate your efforts. I want to help you guys so we can take that next step. We talked about this when I was on a couple weeks ago. There's no necessity for a gap here. There's no 2010, 2012 thing. We do not need that 2011 in the middle. This team needs to build off of what they did last year. And they're not, like we said, you and I both feel like with how good this rotation is, for a couple new bullpen pieces here and there, and they can get a power batter too. I don't feel like this team is that far away.
Not at all. And the frustrating part about Nick Krall coming out and saying that payroll's not really going to change that much is kind of stemming from a discussion that Steve and I had last week, where we really broke down, okay, let's understand that the ownership group for the Cincinnati Reds, and we're not just keying in on Bob and Phil, we're talking about the group that runs the Reds, run the Reds like a business, not a passion project. Right. So revenue matters. There's no way that revenue is stagnant year over year. They had to have made more when it comes to like the number, and they don't make that public, but you know, Forbes had a valuation of them as far as their 2024 revenue, and they used 42% of that revenue on their payroll for 2025. So, okay, let's say that the percentage doesn't even change. They still use 42% of the revenue that they made for 2025 for the payroll for 2026. That should go up. And I'm not saying it's like, yes, they just got enough money to go get Kyle Schwarber, but there should be a little bit more of a wiggle room. Like we're talking, maybe they stretch to 135 or 140 or dare I even say 150. It seems like you could get to that point, but based on what Nick Krall is saying here, and I know that he has done his best to temper expectations throughout the past couple of years after his first few years where he tried to set high expectations. Thankfully, he's learned from that. But it kind of feels like he is almost telling us that, you know, we're not going to see those big moves that we're hoping for this offseason. And that is where everyone is concerned. And that is where I level with everyone on their concern.
Me too. Yeah. And also, like, if you're Brad Metter, like, do you just feel like you just have like the most luck in the world? Like, you don't have to take blame for anything.
Right.
You don't have to take blame for everything. Everything wrong is Nick Krall's
just
fault.
A mouthpiece.
You don't have to talk to the media. You don't have to sit there and like answer questions on why you made moves. Nick Krall has to take the blame, and you can just sit there and be the GM. And barely anyone knows what you look like because you're just never in the public eye. Like, you gotta have the best GM love in the world, man.
But I also remember too, like the role that Brad Metter probably fills is the same role that Nick Krall filled whenever Dick Williams was here, and that Dick Williams was the primary negotiator. Nick Krall handled like the smaller contract stuff, and I think Brad Metter probably does the same thing. And I mean, we all understand Nick Krall operates within the confines that ownership puts forth for him, and then I think Brad Metter operates within the confines that Nick Krall sets forth for him. But at the same time, like, I still feel like Nick Krall is already trying to let us down easy, and the thing ain't even started yet. And so that's where this whole thing really, it vexed me, Tim. It vexed me.
Oh, I'm 100% with you, man. Like, you know, I made the joke on X guest the other day when Edwin Diaz opted out from his contract with the Mets, where I said, like, hey, Edwin, just don't worry about anything your brother said. Things are fine in Cincinnati. Like, it's really nice in the summer. The fan base is great. It'll be great. Like, you should come hang out for a year or two. You know, just approve it kind of thing, even though he's probably going to get like 60 million from the Mariners or somebody.
Yeah. Mariners kept Munoz. I mean, maybe they bring Edwin Diaz back. Maybe he goes to San Francisco or something. Heck, we all know where he's going to LA. He's going to be a Dodger. All the free agents right now, they're all going to be Dodgers. It's just going to happen. But no, I was vexed, but I know this. All right, understanding it's probably not going to change that much. We're talking about 130 million, something like that for the entire payroll. We can look at a few things and how the Reds can make some moves this offseason and make some decisions really within the next 24 hours to make things better for themselves and open themselves up on the payroll side of things. We'll tell you what those are coming up next. The offseason's here, but hey, there's still plenty going on when it comes to NFL, NCAA football, basketball also is getting going this week, and the NBA too. So there's plenty of reasons to head on over to FanDuel, and new users can take advantage of this awesome offer where if your first $5 wager wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets. There's really no odds that you can put a $5 bet down and get $300 back. So FanDuel is really doing you a solid here if you're creating a brand new account. And there's so many different things to get in on, whether it's like same game parlays with NBA games, if you're looking at all the different college basketball games that are going on tonight, tomorrow, and every night from here on out, and of course, college football as well. But you can also look at baseball futures and look way ahead. Obviously, an offseason is still yet to happen, moves still yet to be done, but the Reds are 40-1 to win the World Series. Just saying, maybe take a look at that too. That's all over at FanDuel. They've got this great app that you can download, and that $300 in bonus bets that you would get for your first winning $5 bet is usable across the app. Check out FanDuel today. Thank you for making Locked On Reds part of your everyday routine. If you're an everydayer, you are awesome, and we appreciate everybody who makes us your first listen every day as well. If you're not an everydayer, hit subscribe right here on YouTube or on your favorite podcast app, because we are free and available everywhere you get your podcast.
Jeff.
All right. Yeah.
Jeff, as we're recording, spring training schedules come out.
Oh.
February 21st, first Arizona Cactus League game, Reds Guardians.
Let's go.
It's not even that far away.
February 21st?
It's a Saturday this year, yeah.
Nice.
It feels like it's like forever away. It's not at all.
Right. It's not too bad. It's not too bad. And in between now and then, the Reds need to make a few moves. And I think there's some key, easy things that they can do to free up some space. And I get it. There's going to be somebody that's being pedantic and saying, well, they don't have to free up space. They just have to make more of an investment. We've talked about this before. The Reds don't ask for more money from their ownership group. What is in the team is in the team. So knowing the revenue and things probably went up a little bit, we're thinking about $130 million. With that being said, Spot Track pretty much has 126 of that already being spent. So if you keep everybody that is currently arbitration eligible, and you're talking about guys on pre-arbitration contracts and things like that, coupled with the $15 million you still owe Jamer Candelario, they've got the Reds projected tax payroll right now at $116 million. So around $118 million. It's like there's a little bit of wiggle room in there based on some deals that could be lower, some deals that could be higher. To say all of that before they even get started, that means they've maybe got $15 million to play with, maybe $12 million to play with, somewhere between that. So you've got to open up some space, and there's some key easy moves to make already that could open that up, and you start with Brady Singer. I understand people are talking about Hunter Green, but Brady Singer is estimated around $13 million. If you can trade him, get some value back for him, but open up that $13 million, you're cooking with gas from the start.
Yeah, and as we saw in the promotions the other day, he is not on the bobblehead list this year. So that means he is
no, Keegan Hayes already is, so they're saying we're just not trading. He's untouchable.
Yeah, they're saying that 8.75 mils could be hard to move for Keegan Hayes. Brady Singer makes so much sense as far as a guy that you can move from for that $13 million, like you said. If there's anywhere the Reds are deep, we obviously know where it's at, starting pitching. They have 2 all-stars already in their rotation. They have a guy who we all feel like if he hits all of his starts and has that with that upside is an all-star. And there's another guy that we all feel like, as I've joked about many of times, has the potential to be the potential best pitcher in baseball if everything cracks the way it's supposed to. And by the way, his ERA does not tell how good he was last year. And of course, I'm talking about Chase Burns. So that $13 million makes a lot of sense there. Where are you on the $4.5 million that Spot Track's projecting for Gavin Lux? Because to me, I'm all for him being back. I know you like him a lot. Mm-hmm. And I feel like if he could potentially be someone where, like, if this Matt McLain thing does keep going the way it did, instead of it improving like we all hope it is, like, that's a guy you can have potentially be your everyday second baseman. And oh my God, I can already hear the Ellie de la Cruz to outfield conversation. My ears are already bleeding from it. But what I'm saying here is that a contract? Because $4.5 billion is not a lot of money by any means for a player like him. But is that a guy that you also kind of see, like, is there something I can get to get him off the books? Because we all agree Austin Hayes is $12 million not getting picked up. That's $1 million buyout.
No.
So
No, and that
is Lux the next move?
I think there's definitely a good argument for it. The likelihood of him being on the roster next year increased exponentially with Santiago Espinal leaving.
You're right. You're right.
Because I kind of feel like he fills the role that Espinal had. He has a worse glove than Espinal, but a better bat.
And that's a $2 million wash because of Espinal. So
right, and so I could kind of see them keeping him there. My interesting thing talking about, like, I mean, there's definitely non-tenders that they could go through like that. But for me, the options between Scott Barlow and Brent Suter, I would like to keep both of them.
Me too.
But could you keep them for less? I don't know about Barlow. I think there might be a little bit of a bidding war for Barlow.
I do too. Yeah, I do too. I think he was really good.
But I don't think so on Suter.
No. Suter could be your long man. He could be your opener when you have to have a bullpen day. And I don't think anyone's running out to be like, hey, Reds, I know you're offering him this much money. We will also try to outbid you. So right now he's looking at a $3 million option, a $250,000 buyout. I don't think major league teams are chomping at the bit to offer Brent Suter $3 million.
No, and you could probably do a 1+1 deal again with him. And
we all know I love those 1+1s.
Right.
Miguel Andujar, I want a 1+1 so bad for.
And 1+1 meaning 1 year deal with a 1 year club option. So that the club controls whether or not they come back for the next year. But I also note, like how much he made and how much Scott Barlow made, their options are just exponential increases from what they made this past year. And so I think part of that was a little bit of security for the player and a little bit of, if we try to trade this guy, he's got some extra added value because of the club option. But I don't necessarily know that the Reds set that up for themselves to then pick that option up. There's $9.5 million that you're talking about if you pick up both those guys. So let's pretend for a moment the Reds trade Brady Singer. The Reds don't pick up the options on Scott Barlow and Brent Suter. So instead of $9 million, they pay them $1.25 million combined. So you just saved. So you saved 22 minus 1. So you saved 21 million off of what we thought the payroll would be, and so you take that down to about 90 something. Let's also say they just go really stingy and they do trade Gavin Lux. Now you're talking about almost $25 million that have just been freed up on top of what was already perceived between 12 and 15. So now you're talking about, what's that? Almost $40 million to play with for trades and for free agents. Is the $40 million for you more valuable, or the $40 million space to play with more valuable than having Singer, Barlow, Suter, and Lux?
Oh, that's a good question.
Because that's the hard part about this, is that, yes, there is $40 million of space, but there are 4 spots that just open up on the roster that the bullpen, you could probably see some guys stepping into those roles. Gavin Lux, I don't think so, because I think Spencer Steer has a position home next year. I don't think he can be the super utility guy unless they make a big move. And then Brady Singer, you are taking away starting pitching depth.
Yeah, and you've kind of mentioned a lot, just the Brandon Williamsons, the Julian Aguilars, those guys who could potentially be coming back as well. So I lean yes, but I can be talked either direction, because I do feel like, especially in the sense of Suter and Barlow, I think we all feel pretty high on Connor Phillips kind of taking that next step in the bullpen next year.
Yeah.
And there's going to be a lot of really decent lefties. I don't want to say great or awesome lefties by any means, but decent lefties that are going to be available for bullpen spots, that I think the Reds could really take advantage of. And so I lean yes, but I also could be talking crazy because it's the 4th day of the off season and I haven't had a whole lot of time to sit down and think about it.
I will say, like, in years past, I have been that guy where early on in the offseason, I'm saying, let's free up as much space as you got. And look, if you need that guy, you just go back and you get that guy. And there's a chance that you get him for less than what you would have had to pay for him. I also note, too, and the guy that we forgot to mention, I don't necessarily know that they're tendering him a contract because of how they approached him this past year. Sam Maul is due to make $1.25 million in arbitration. Gone. I think he's gone.
I do too.
So you can cut that. I mean, that's not an exponential number. That's not a exorbitant number that you're going to get really excited about, but that is a number.
Yeah.
That you can add to that. But yeah, I think that
it's in the margins.
It's easy to approach it from a fantasy baseball perspective or from a MLB The Show perspective of saying, free up the salary room and let's see what we can do. I do think that Nick Krall is aggressive enough under the parameters that he is given where he has made moves in the past. What I wonder about, is he going to be gun shy about going and getting that big guy, because he has swung and missed on every big contract, as it were, that he has tried to sign. So yeah, that's all in quotes, air quotes, big contract. We know what we're talking about here. So I think that there are moves to be made, and it'll be interesting to see how they decide on these options. They have the option deadline is tomorrow, so we will see exactly what they make the call on both Barlow and Suter. I think it's a foregone conclusion, though, that they're not picking up Austin Hayes.
Completely agree. Yeah, completely agree.
Actually, I don't even see him. Have they already made a decision? He's not even listed on Spot Track. I find that interesting. Maybe somebody's made a decision and just not been reported. But anyway, let's look into the bullpen specifically, though, because the Reds made a move and added an arm, a project guy. Let's be honest about Keegan Thompson, but we'll break him down just a little bit and look at a bold prediction or two as to who could surprise us in the bullpen in 2026. The best way to make your sports watching experience more fun is with Prize Picks, because Prize Picks, you can put together daily lineups of your favorite players with your favorite stats. All you got to do is click more or less on those stats, and you can get paid, because it's great to be right. When you're right on Prize Picks, you get paid. Click more on Jamar Chase receiving yards. Click more on T. Higgins touchdowns. All of those great things over on Prize Picks. And the best way to do it, because you got to go over to Kentucky to put your Prize Picks lineup together, you go over to Covington, blocking a bridge from the ballpark to Smoke Justice, and you put in your lineup and you get paid. Download the app today and use the promo code LOCKEDONMLB and get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, that's code LOCKEDONMLB for $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. If you can't watch us on YouTube, you can always listen to us on your favorite podcasting app. We're on all of them out there. Make sure you go subscribe today. And when you're done with today's episode, make sure you check out Locked On MLB. Sully's got you covered all throughout the offseason with views around the league and talking about the big stories that will affect all of us baseball fans as we move into next season. All right, Tim, the Reds did make one signing. It was actually a major league signing, so it's not as if this was a minor league deal with invite to spring training like we typically see this early on in the off season. And I saw some questions as to how they were able to do this. So they signed right-handed pitcher Keegan Thompson, who was in the Cubs organization last year. He was a minor league player that was not on the Cubs 40-man roster. So he was available to be signed by the Reds. If you were on a 40-man roster and you had to be cut to free agency, then the Reds would have had to have waited until Friday to announce that signing. But since he wasn't, he was available. And so that's the first key here, is that we're not talking about a guy that's coming straight from the Cubs bullpen to the Reds bullpen. He kind of pitched a little bit in years past for them out of the bullpen, and he was intriguing with some swing and miss stuff, but he also had the walks a lot. And I texted with our Locked On Cubs guys about this a little bit. I'm like, what do you think? Is this a nothing move? And they're like, well, it's not nothing, because he might still have something there, but it's definitely a dart throw, lottery ticket flyer thing. We weren't even counting him into any sort of plans last year. So it's a Derek Johnson special.
We love Derek Johnson specials around here in the old Cincinnati Reds fandom. I like the move as far as just a see what happens kind of thing. It's not like I'm saying this is the difference maker by any means.
Right.
But you mentioned it. I mean, he's definitely got intriguing stuff. The strikeout, the whip percentage looks very promising, but also the walk percentage and the control is a little fascinating. And the thing I keep constantly seeing people bring up is, well, he had a 4 ERA in AAA last year. I'm like, yeah, AAA defense and Major League defense are significantly different things. So he could hit ground balls right at a shortstop that shortstop wasn't in his range to get. That happens. Right. We didn't watch Iowa Cubs games last year. I have no complete breakdown for you. I'm sorry.
I didn't either. Yeah, neither of us. Yeah, that was not on my radar.
Yeah, but with that being said, the Major League stuff certainly looks promising. The Baseball Reference page looks solid, and what's the worst that happens here? It's just not good, and he doesn't make the team in spring training or something. Then okay, so I like it. I think he has some upside that you definitely can try to take advantage of because, the Locked On Cubs guy said, he could still potentially have something available. But I'm not gonna go in here and do a breakdown of spraying champagne bottles around the office to say that this wins the Central by any means.
No, and it's not the rebuild the bullpen type move. This is I think of like a Tyler Thornton signing that the Reds had a couple of years ago, where it was just like dude's had a career elsewhere. He's had a lot of question marks here recently. He could be a guy who rebounds under Derek Johnson, and he could be a guy that we just don't see at all. Really quickly, his pitch mix that we saw in 2024, the most recent time that he was in the majors, there were 4 pitches that he threw at least 14% or more. It was a sweeper, curveball, cutter, four-seamer. Four-seamer he threw the most, averaged around 93.5 miles an hour. So I think there's a really good chance here that what Derek Johnson does is he goes in and he's like, let's focus this down to 2, maybe 3 pitches, because he even threw a couple of other pitches less than 14% of the time. So it just looked like he didn't know what to do. Like he got up on the mound and he's just like, I can throw everything. And it's like,
right.
Find a couple of things that you're good at. And Derek Johnson is really good at focusing a pitcher in on what do you do good? We will make you do great. And there's probably a better English way of saying that. But that being said, it's got me thinking, because we talked a little bit about Connor Phillips. There's definitely the Zach Maxwells of the world and the Luis Meys of the world. And maybe some starters who move to the bullpen and become more valuable to the Reds in those roles. Let's find a crystal ball here and let's look really closely into it and say, all right, this guy who wasn't a dude for the bullpen last year will be a guy for the Reds bullpen in 2026, because we know that relief pitching is a very fickle thing. Who would you pick first?
Well, Connor Phillips is definitely the one, because he was a guy in the bullpen, but it was late to the point where his savant page, he didn't qualify for a lot of statistics, but what he did qualify for is a 96th percentile in fastballs and fastball velocity. His whiff rate was 37.4%. His K rate was 32.7%. And like we said, just didn't pitch enough innings. But versus left-handed hitters last year, he was outstanding. Versus right-handed hitters, he was still very good. So I feel like you're looking at a guy who had a 288 ERA to 25 innings, had a whip under 1, 32 strikeouts. I feel like he's got to be the first guy we get mentioned as far as kind of taking that next step.
I agree with that. And I really liked what he was bringing to the table in the most pressure-packed situations here.
That's because a huge underlier.
When he's shown the brightest was when the Reds were trying to make their run to the wild card. And that for me, and I know it did for Jeff Brantley, and I know it did for Chris Welsh, and for anybody that was broadcasting about the games, you heard it a lot when they talked about Connor Phillips. They were just like, man, we are so impressed with the progression that we've seen from him. A guy that was off the radar. The radar, doing that whole Joey from Friends, but it was just like the line's a dot to you. The radar was a dot to Connor Phillips at the beginning of 2025. He was so far off of it. And now we're talking about him being a potential closer candidate. So he made a heck of a progression there to get to that point. The guy that I would say, to throw another name in there, because there's going to be so many different guys that we just don't know that are going to provide some unseen value to this bullpen. But a guy that I expect a lot more from next year is Zach Maxwell.
Me too.
Speaking of velocity, Zach Maxwell had the average fastball velocity, albeit in just 165 total pitches in the major leagues, of 99.6. That put him in the top 1% of baseball for his time on the mound. 35.5% whiff rate from him. And of course, the thing that you're going to have to worry about the most is the walk rate and things like that. We'll see if he can rein that in. There's a lot of other stuff that he's got to get better at. He is a hard thrower that gives up a lot of fly balls, and which means you're going to give up a lot of hard contact, and it's going to be in the air, and it's going to be at Great American Ballpark. So there's plenty of things that could go wrong with Zach Maxwell, but there's also some really fun things that could go right. And if they go right, they could be real right. And of course, the top of that list is the fact that his nickname is Big Sugar.
Yeah, I feel like the conversation you're saying about Zach Maxwell is the exact same conversation we could say about Luis Mey, in the sense that it's two guys who have great arm talent, who can throw it really, really hard. And if it finds the strike zone, it's really hard to hit, but it's just finding the strike zone and making sure it's not super hittable. And those are guys who, Luis Mey, we all remember the 3 walk innings he had and things like that, where it just was like, he just wasn't ready quite yet. He hadn't matured to that point, but I can't give up on his talent. And I feel the same exact way about Zach Maxwell, where it's a talent I can't give up on. Obviously, everyone loves the Big Sugar persona. Everyone loves the thumbs down after the strikeouts. Like, sign me up for all of that. Also, just kind of having that personality where those guys are just not afraid to take the ball. And I think that's the one thing I really appreciate about Luis Mey. Is like, yeah, he might throw it to the backstop 4 or 5 times, but he's ready to take the ball.
I think it's easy to predict right now that of those 3 guys we just mentioned, Connor Phillips will be in the opening day bullpen. I have a hard time saying confidently in November that either Maxwell or May will be in the opening day bullpen, but they're definitely going to be on the short list to get called up from Louisville early on in the season. And we know that it doesn't matter how good you are at pitching, you will still go through pitchers, especially in the bullpen. So we will see those guys at some point, but I am excited about their talent. But you're right. Like, both guys have this similar thing where it's just like, it could go wrong really bad, really fast. And that's what they've got to work against. Because we saw it with Luis Mey. Like, when he was first called up, nobody could touch him.
Yeah.
And then it was like gradually he moved to exactly what we worried about, in that he couldn't find the strike zone, at all. And that's what caused him to get sent back down and kind of written out of the plan for the rest of the year. So how do those guys push forward from that? That's why they are the more bold prediction type bullpen arms to make a difference in 2026.
Do you have an outside guy you're looking at yet?
Not yet, just because I don't think I will see those guys until spring training. Because, like, right now, I would love to say, yes, I think Keegan Thompson is going to be something. I think it's intriguing that they gave him a major league contract right off the bat. It wasn't a minor league deal with invite to spring training. So that means, he's on the 40 man.
I meant outside the organization, like a potential free agent guy. I got one.
Who you got?
Phil Maton.
I'll take that.
Yeah, going to be a free agent this year. Just wrapped up his got traded from the Cardinals in the middle of the year to Texas. He's bounced around the league a lot for being in the league for 8 years. Really good lefty. Numbers are always promising. I think he makes a lot of sense for the Reds.
They need lefties too, because they were betting on Sam Maul, and that was a bad bet last year. And Brent Suter's not the kind of guy that you want to turn to in high leverage situations on a regular basis. So yeah, Phil Maton, he would be the kind of guy, or Maton. I think I
get it wrong every time.
Maton, but Maton. Anyway,
he would be
exactly. He'd be a guy that I would look at too. But they would definitely do some more looking into some potential free agent fits for the Reds. We'll be looking at all of that throughout the offseason, because we're going to be talking Reds baseball with you every single day, all throughout the offseason. So make sure that you subscribe. If you've gotten this far and you're not subscribed, you should definitely subscribe. Become an everydayer, just like our esteemed everydayers. You guys rock. Thanks for making us your first listen as always. Now, make sure you go check out Locked On MLB. Sully's got you covered for the league at large and everything going on around Major League Baseball. And he can tell you the historical impact of all of it, because he was definitely there whenever Ted Kluszewski showed up without sleeves, because he knows everything about the history of baseball. And that is Locked On MLB. Just like Locked On Reds, we're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. But as for Tim and Steve, who will be back tomorrow, and myself, we are Locked On Reds every single day.
It's always so fun getting to be back on this. I miss it so much.
Yeah, hopefully we got some fun news to talk about here soon.
Hopefully, man.